Good evening. So I want to do something a bit, it's not necessarily different because I actually love just talking about things like this. Um, but I wanted to do something based on fashion. I've been super excited to do this video. I've been thinking about it. So this video is going to be basically just about my style evolution and the way that, like, throughout the years, I've just changed the way that I have dressed myself and how I've expressed myself. So yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and get into it, and I'm gonna just talk about my clothing. So it's great because that's exactly what I love talking about. So let's begin. So first off, if you have to know anything about me, um, it I think one of the leading characteristics people would usually describe me as is like loud and confident, which is funny because I don't always feel confident. Um, I have a fake it till you make it kind of mindset, so it's usually how I do that. Um, But I think that's how definitely people would describe me as like loud, especially with not only like my personality and the way I talk, but also the way I express myself and the way I dress and just what I like, I think is all very out there. So I think it's funny because as a kid, um, it was always very obvious that I was kind of very out there, very outgoing. I was a bit crazy. I'd make my parents laugh all the time. All of my friends and stuff, I think, would describe me as kind of like the one that makes everybody laugh. Just all those kind of things as like a young kid, right? And this is like before elementary school and like in elementary. I was incredibly bold and confident as a kid. I think as everybody is because, you know, you're not even old enough to be able to write like confident, right? You can't even spell that as a kid. So there's no reason to be insecure about anything because you don't even understand what that means, right? So as a kid, I was always very outgoing, very funny. I was a huge goof. I'd tell it like it is, you know. I was very blunt in a weird kind of kid way, you know. And I just think that I was just always so much more, I would say, extroverted. I was very out there. And yes, I still drive like this. But yeah, I've just always been very out there. And, you know, I had a good amount of friends, I wouldn't say a ton. And at this time in my life, for like the first few years, my mom would dress us, right? Me and my younger sibling, she'd dress us. And so you kind of get the early 2000s and those pictures and things like that where it's like very like fun prints or very bright colors. But then like I think I started to get into a very rebellious stage where I kind of wanted to start dressing myself in the way that I wanted to dress, which was very tomboyish. I wore a lot of like puffy jackets. I had usually some kind of jean pant on, like things like that, a funny, interesting shirt that was very bright, and like none of the colors ever matched. Ever matched. Unless my mom would dress me. It was very crazy, very all over the place, right? As kids are. I had for a while a very bright neon orange jacket that I loved. I loved that stinking thing. And I would wear it with everything. It did not matter what it was like what the outfit was. If I could wear the neon jacket, I would wear the neon jacket. I think I also had a couple other things. It's kind of like in special interest related where like if it's something that I decided I love, it's gonna go with everything. It's like the jacket. I think I had a hat for a while that one of my aunts, or was it a cousin? I think it was a cousin that made it for me for Christmas one year. I was very obsessed with that thing. Uh, I think I had a brown jacket with a furry, like, hood that I loved for a while. And at this point in time, I was very much a dad's girl. Like, I'd go hunting with him and everything, so you could see that within my style of, like, tomboy, you know? Um, I was always playing on recess. I was always the one roughing it with all the other boys and things like that, and just kind of going crazy, very active. Um, For a while, I had bangs, because I wanted to know what bangs were like, and I got bangs cut, and those were horrible. They were very, like, oh, and I remember not liking them as a kid, too. But yeah, I would say, like, that was pretty much my style. Very tomboy-esque, dressing myself as kids do and whatever, and elementary school was just an interesting time. It was very, like, there was no time to feel insecure. I have friends that I need to make. I have, like, things I need to draw, math problems I need to solve, whatever. So, it was, a very easy time, I'd say. Like, it didn't, nothing really worried me. So, this is where we kind of move on from elementary school and being very confident, very unknowing, to middle school, which was a completely change, okay? Very different in middle school. I don't know exactly where it stems from, but I became very insecure very quickly. Um, I think the one thing that really got me was that I wasn't as active, and so I started to put on a bit of weight. And, like, a lot of the figures in my life were all much thinner than me. So, like, my mom and my younger sibling have always been super thin compared to me. And I think always looking around and just stuff like that and seeing other people wasn't even necessarily that I got bullied or anything. I was never even really made aware of it. It was mostly always myself that kind of would look at me and be like, "Oh, I look different from everybody else," and that would always bug me. And I don't think it helps that in this time of my life, a lot of the friends that I had had in elementary school, I didn't keep into middle school. I had to make a whole new friend group, which was fairly easy. I had, like, maybe one or two friends that kind of led to other friend groups. Um, but I always felt lonely. I always felt very like an outcast. Like, I didn't really fit in with anybody. And I think that, honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if that's just a very universal thing of people just feeling not steady. 6th grade here in the States. It's a period of change because you're going from elementary school to a completely new school with new people sometimes, and just new ways of doing everything. You're not in the same classroom anymore. You have to go to different classrooms. You have new teachers. You have no playground anymore, so you don't even go out to recess or anything like that. It was just it was a time changing kind of thing, right? And so you're already on very nervous footing, and it just kind of snowballed, right? A lot of the friends that I had, I would say, I usually always had a best friend, um, and for some reason that always ended. So I would have, like, a really close friend for a few years, and then I would just have a new best friend after that, right? And so things were always constantly going all over the place. And also, a lot of stuff was happening within my life, like at home, that was also causing a lot of anger and a lot of unstable foundation. It just, I just was not very happy. And I don't have a lot of photos of myself during this time period because I didn't like taking photos of myself and I didn't like when other people would take photos of me. So, the photos I do have, like, are definitely photos of me experimenting a lot with clothing. For a while, I was getting stuff from my mom, who was giving me, like, pants or things like that. And my body started maturing and, starting to fill out in certain places. Other places didn't fill out that much. You're going through a lot of hormones. It's just a lot. Okay, it's a lot of stuff. And so I just was like, my emotions were everywhere. But I would definitely say that I was very upset during this time period. And it was probably, honestly, one of the darkest moments of my life was middle school, just because of how uncertain I was. Just about everything, whether it be friendships, whether it be myself, my future, you know, um, high school, and, like, all of that other stuff. And I was just really like, I don't know what to do. And so, honestly, I was kind of terrified. I didn't know what to do throughout school. And so yeah, I would definitely say I got a lot of my mom's clothes, and you can definitely see that in a lot of the photos. Like there was very like bright leggings. Um, there was for a while a nice green dress that I had that was super long, that had long sleeves that I loved. I get compliments all the time going to school in it. Um, but I loved that dress. Other than that, there was a lot of other ones that were definitely like, okay, they were questionable. But I was experimenting, trying to experiment with stuff and see what I liked and things like that. And I don't think I really found it at this time, but I was getting closer to it. Uh, but yeah, this was an interesting time period. So this is where we move on to high school. Now, high school was ups and downs. I've always not liked school. Okay, I didn't like going to school in general. Uh, I just find it boring, and I could be doing so many other things with my time. Freshman year was definitely a new environment because you're going into a new school. Once again, new friends, new teachers, new people, new way of going about school. It was a very transitional time period for me. I was not. I was very insecure at this time. At this point, very insecure. Didn't know what I liked. I didn't know how I liked to dress, and I didn't like my body. And I was hiding a lot of it with you know, being funny and kind of, having certain things that would stick out in a friend group. I was known for, well, still am. I've been known for having long hair. And so that was like my whole personality was like my long hair. And it just kind of, you get into high school and, people don't really care about that stuff. Or they care too much, right? It's like one or the other. And a lot of the other girls, you have other girls that have even longer hair or things like that, and then you lose your spark. And that's how I felt. I felt like I had nothing to bring to the table. And so it was a very interesting time period. Going on to sophomore year, I had started getting into tarot, uh, and just spirituality in general and things like that. And I would say this is probably the first time that I ever actually took a look at my mental health and how I could try to better myself and, stop feeling the way I had been feeling because I had been just so over it. I was so over feeling bad all the time. And so I started to kind of come out of my shell. I was still pretty lonely. I think a lot of the friends I had were very superficial. It wasn't like I had a couple of pretty close friends, but I didn't feel like I fit in, if that makes sense. And I was really starting to think about my future because you know how high school is. It's like almost every year they bring up something like career wise. Like, what are you going to do in your future? And I'm like, bro, I don't know. I'm like 15 or 16. I don't know. I don't care. And yeah, it was just an interesting time period. I say freshman and like sophomore year were just like very transitional, trying to get my footing and just being very confused on what I was doing. I had to move because my light died, but it's okay. We'll do this from this angle now. Okay, so on to junior and senior year. I kind of gap these together just because, to me, it was all a blur. I don't remember much of any of my childhood, to be honest. I remember certain things, but not a lot. Junior and senior year were like very. This was definitely the point where I was like, I don't even care anymore, right? I don't care. And I started getting into that very teenage phase of like, whatever, I'm doing what I want. I don't care. Right. Moving on. This was when I had my first ever relationship. So I have photos of these years because when I was in this relationship, you want to talk to this other person. It was all new, things like that. And I think weirdly enough, this started to get me out of my shell, but also make me insecure. It was really interesting because I was taking photos of myself and seeing myself all the time. And I was very not happy with not only myself, but in this relationship, because I don't think that honestly I was ready. It was just a spur of the moment decision, to be honest. And I was just so lost. Just very lost. Like, at this time, pretty much anything you could think of that was like something like a teenager would go through was what was going on, right? I didn't know where my sexuality was. I don't know how I wanted to represent myself. I didn't know my future, what my future was going to look like. I didn't know, like, even what I wanted for my future. I didn't know any of this. And so I was just so unhappy with a lot of this stuff. And I just started to coming out like, I don't care about anything. I just don't care. And my um, style during this time actually changed quite a bit, in my opinion. I started to experiment a lot more with outfit ideas and clothing, and I also had a job at this time, so I had my own money, my own adult money, quote unquote. Um, so I was buying my own clothes now, and I was experimenting with everything, like everything that I could get my hands on. I was experimenting with. And then you also have like the side of it, like social media, which I have been on social media, like YouTube and things like that for quite a while now. It's probably been since middle school. And so I would just follow what other people would do and like mix and match and pull what I liked and what I didn't like and whatever, things like that. And still very lonely, but I was working on my mental health at this time. And I was doing a lot of work just trying to become more confident, and I would say that it definitely worked. I think it took a while, but I started to become much happier with how I represented myself and how I looked. And not because I was changing anything. I still looked pretty much the same. I've looked almost the exact same for a while now. But I was working on my confidence, and it was still very shaky, but I was doing the work. So that was great. I'm just happy that I was doing something about it. But yeah, these years of my life were very formative. I think it was very experimental. Um, a lot of unsure kind of emotions coming around and things like that, but I worked through a lot of it. And during this time period, I didn't have nearly as many friends as I had started with in like the beginning of high school. A lot of our friends had either moved away or were a part of different friend groups. And the friends that I did still have either had other partners that they were with and things like that, or whatever, right? I was only in a relationship for, let's say, almost a year. I don't think that's right. I think it was a little bit less than that. But I was pretty much on my own for like quite a while. Now this kind of leads to the like after, when you get out of high school. At this point I knew I didn't want to go to college, okay? I knew I didn't want to go to college. And I was going out a lot with like the one friend I had at the time. I was going out a lot and we were going to like the mall and stuff. I'm like all of that. So I was buying new clothes. I was really experimental during this time. I would say honestly, I was getting really confident within myself during this time period. It was great not having to go to school, and that was wonderful. All I did was work at this time, and that was pretty much it. The only thing is I hated my job, okay? But I was working very hard on my mental health, but also on the way that I saw myself, the way I viewed my body and things like that. And I was finding myself and becoming more confident with my style and with who I was as a person. And that was very, I'd say beautiful. I think it was very beautiful. And I was starting to become okay with being alone but not lonely, right? Because there's two different things of that. So I was, you know, when I was at home and I was like, instead of focusing so much on like, oh, what about what everybody else is doing? I was just doing what I wanted to do. And that was great. And I was becoming more okay with doing things by myself and not having to have somebody else there. So that was great. And I think it was probably about a year or so after right after getting out of high school, about a year after, I got into my second relationship, and honestly, the style during this time was an absolute bop. I think I loved my style during this time. It was very me at the time, and just a lot, right? It was all over the place. I wore what I wanted when I wanted, and it was like so much fun getting to experiment with all of the different outfits that I had decided on during this time period. Um, and they were good outfits. Like, you can see. I still have some of the clothes in these pictures. So like in this one, I still have the fluffy jacket, like the cream jacket thing. I love that jacket, and that outfit was such a bop. My hair looks so good. I don't know what's going on in those photos, but they're great. And also just like trying out like skirts, trying out dresses. What do these kind of pants look on me? What do these kind of shorts look on me? Do I like tighter fit clothing or more loose stuff? Like, it was just all over the place, and honestly, I mixed and matched a lot, and that was great. It was so much fun, so much fun. And I was becoming so just happy with myself. Now, this is where we bring ourselves to present time, and the whole reason I decided to make this video. Recently, I cleaned out my closet, and with that, I've kind of realized that the way that I want to dress myself has changed. I don't take as many photos anymore, and that's mostly just because I don't go out as much anymore. Okay, I lie, because I do still go out a lot. But it's more like, I don't feel the need to take photos anymore. Because it used to be, for a while, I think a way that I was still kind of proving to myself that I am able to look good and things like that, and that my body is fine. Now I am very confident with how I look and how I present myself, but we've run into the problem where now I've wanted to find a more concrete style for now, right? I think that they'll change throughout the years. I'm not going to dress the same way and probably a few years from now, but I've been kind of unhappy with my closet. And cleaning out my closet kind of showed that to me, because I've been unhappy for a while with it, because it doesn't feel like me anymore. And so I made a list of just like the things that do feel like me. And weirdly enough, a lot of those things are not really in my closet. So I think this year I'm definitely going to be a lot more cognizant of what I buy, and how I decide to dress myself, because I want to become who I am in outfit form. And so I'm very excited. It's going to be a whole new kind of just year in time for me, because I'm going to be pretty much just relearning how I want to dress, and I want to take more photos, because I just want to get back into it, getting into photos and taking them and whatever, posting them to my Instagram, things like that. Not because I feel like I need to, but because I want to. And I think that is exactly how I want to go about in life, is just, I don't need to do anything, I want to do it. And my outfits are definitely one of those things. I want to just experiment with the things I already know I like. So, other than that, I would say that my outfits have they've been okay. I've had okay outfits. But I want to experiment a bit more and have a bit more fun with them. So, hopefully this year will give me the opportunity to do that and just really represent myself and experiment. And yeah, and I encourage you to do the same. It's very fun to get to, like, find new clothing and new styles that you wanna try and things like that, and I think it makes us more open-minded to things that look different outside of the norm, whatever the norm means, and lift other people up. And yeah, so that is my style evolution from elementary school to now. It'll probably change in the future. Maybe I'll have to do another video in a few years about this, but I'm excited, and I hope that you guys enjoy watching, you know, my style evolution change, but I also hope that you enjoy watching your style evolution change. So I hope you have a good night, evening, morning, wherever you are. Bye bye.